Welcome to Oglethorpe Outlook here on the SDH Network. I'm Madison Cruz, and for this week's episode, we got a lot in store for you. It's a jam-packed weekend full of soccer in Brookhaven. Starting on Friday, the Oglethorpe men's and women's soccer team will be hosting Rhodes College in a doubleheader. The women's will start at 5 p.m., and the men's will start shortly after that, around 30 minutes. So if you're going to be in Brookhaven, you're going to be in for a fun doubleheader over at Oglethorpe University. Now, before the matchup tomorrow, I had the opportunity to catch up with head coach Rob King of the Oglethorpe women's soccer team to talk a little bit about that 7-0 loss to Emory on Tuesday and how that match can help them heading in to a tough challenge in Rhodes on Friday. I guess, obviously, coming off of the Emory match on Tuesday, what were some of the biggest things you learned during that game, especially heading into this matchup on Friday against Rhodes?
Yeah, I think with a game like that, I think Emory was on the schedule here a few years back, and then that seemed to go away. And then when I came in, we played them right off the bat, and then for some reason weren't able to get them on last year. I think there just wasn't an opportunity for them to play us, so it was important that we got them on this year, and we have them on every year because they are a team that that does well nationally, is really a measuring stick for us to go up against. So as I sort of shared with the team in advance of the game, it's those sorts of games that do expose your weaknesses and expose yourself to what potentially could go wrong in some closer games. So we went into it with that mindset. Obviously looking to do well in that game, but realizing there will be some matchups and things that are not in our favor, and it's a matter of being able to cover for each other. So I wasn't pleased with the game. I was pleased with the way that we've responded since that in our practices and in our discussions with the players. So I think that game will have benefited them going into the rest of the conference now. I think it showed us quite a bit, and I think it would be really helpful for us.
I think especially, too, I mean, with how competitive the SAA is, it's a nice, like kind of like you mentioned, a measuring stick for kind of going up against these other opponents in SAA, especially as you get into the final stretch where it is all conference play.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, if you look at how sort of Centre does against Emory, our Swanee does against them. Swanee tied them, obviously this year, but were very much dominated in terms of stats in that game. But were able to, hold them, score first, and get a tie out of that. The Centre game is usually a close game with Emory as well. But it's still one that Emory, tends to dominate. So we know that it's playing against, the best in the country, one of the best in the country, but obviously it would be right at the top of our top. So yeah, and it's good preparation for us as we go into next year, and the Texas teams come in as well, because we've got high level teams coming in.
Absolutely. One player I do want to touch on that impressed me tremendously, especially in that Emory game, was Grace Elsevier. 17 saves that game. What did you see from her, and how important is it to have someone who's so steady in between the posts for you guys?
Yeah, she was very good. She made an aim. We've got two good goalkeepers here, so we expect them to do well if they're sort of peppered the way that Grace was in that game. She had a very good game in there, and it's somewhat unusual if you're not familiar with soccer to say, well, the player let 5 goals in, but she had a good game, but she did. She was very good and very clean on nearly everything in that game. And she's struggling a little bit with an injury at the moment. So her kicking game was a little bit off, and that bothered her a little bit in the game. But overall, she had a great game.
And looking ahead to that game against Rhodes, you mentioned that the players have responded really well in practice after that Emory game, especially leading into Rhodes. What have you been seeing from the girls leading into this matchup, and what are some of the things mindset-wise that you've seen change since that game?
Yeah, I think just the understanding that of what the top level is, and the aspiration to get to that level, in a lot of players, and we're a group, so we've got 13 real young ones this year, and then last year we were the same with about 9, so it's a lot of young ones in there, and we want to make sure that they have that mindset where where you are right now isn't where you're going to be. If you work hard, if you're gritty and you listen and you're very coachable, then we can sort of grow together and make some pretty big steps. So that's what we're seeing from our group. It's been a little unfortunate this year. We've had some pretty serious injuries to our group, so we haven't been able to keep a consistent sort of centre back pairing, or some consistency in the midfield, or even up top. So that's been a little more challenging this year, in that we've had to move players around in some key positions, but they're responding well.
And looking at Rhodes, last question for you, but looking at that team, especially heading into tomorrow, what are some of the things that they do well that you're going to be looking towards to try and silence them?
Yeah. I mean, we watch film on them. They're sort of big, strong at the back. They've got some really good players, through the midfield. They like getting on the ball. They're good in 1v1s. They hit and can score from outside the box, or they've got pace to get in behind you. So, in several areas, they can hurt teams. They scored quite a few goals. Their winning record is good this year. So we know they're a team that if you don't play well against them, they can come on the road and pick up results. But the things that we've learned, I think, by playing against some of the better teams earlier on and sort of back to back, I think will have prepared us well for the Rhodes game.
Up next on Oglethorpe Outlook, Jason Longshore and I had the opportunity to catch up with goalkeeper AJ Evans and defender Casey Torres after soccer practice earlier this week to talk about this upcoming match against Rhodes and what needs to be done in order to keep their 5-game winning streak alive.
And AJ, let's start with you. Last match, just give us a walkthrough on how you feel like your team is building into conference play right now.
I would say that the way that we've just been taking on the conference, we're not afraid of anyone. We're taking them by the horns and just going at them. We're playing our game, not playing into them. And at this point, we've put 4 past both our conference opponents, and I'd like to keep that momentum going. Obviously, we got to keep some clean sheets here. The defense, we've made a couple errors here. We were asleep coming out of the second half against Sewanee. But other than that, it's been 3 really good goals against us, and I think the team's moving in the right direction.
Casey, I'd love to follow up on that, like the style of play. It's such an important thing here at Oglethorpe. You're new to the squad. How have you kind of adapted to, and what do you like about it?
Yeah, no, I love the 3-5-2 positions that we have. I know we started off with the 4-2-3-1 that had me in the 6. A little uncomfortable there. I played a 3-back last year. That was a lot of fun. It really opens up the width and allows us to go more direct when the teams press us. And we have the talent and speed up top if we want to go more direct, and it's just as easy as keeping the ball. But I will say the 3 goals that have been scored on us were absolute bangers.
Yeah.
Shout out the center guys,
Yeah.
and the one Sewanee guy with the left-footed bang. So I can't be too mad about that. But I think feeling real good. 2 games going in, or 2 games in the conference.
Yep.
Feeling good, and I don't think we put our best performance together against Sewanee. We still pulled out the result. So I think if we just keep building on that, I don't think too many teams can beat us.
AJ, walk me through that, like the goalkeeper mentality of you concede, you're angry, you're frustrated, but it's a banger. How do you shake it off?
Goals happen. I mean, if you watch Premier League every weekend, there's a goal that's going in on a world-class goalkeeper. And yes, it's nice to save everything, but at the end of the day, well-struck shots happen. And you got to be able to shake it off and keep your momentum and keep the guys knowing, like, hey, next one's not going to be like that, all right? I'm going to keep it out. We can keep this thing going. So
we talked about style of play a little bit with Casey on the field. For you, Are you used to playing out of the back this much, having the ball at your feet this much?
So yeah, I transferred in from University of West Florida, so the same philosophy, play out of the back, find the simple ball, and yes, when it is under pressure, you are allowed to go long, but typically you want to play out, keep possession, because keep the other team running, and that'll tire them out for our offense to just get it going.
So Casey, looking ahead this weekend, 2 games, Friday and Sunday, how hard are those kinds of grinds on you guys physically?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a grind, especially going into in the midst of my 5th year of playing college soccer. You know, a lot of Saturday, Wednesday games, and then, you know, Friday, Sundays definitely puts a toll on the body. I will say we do have the depth where, you know, we can really take it one game at a time. I'm not too worried about the Sunday game because we haven't played Friday yet. So, you know, take that Friday game on, and then look, we come back Sunday, we get JR back, we get Conte back. Potentially Levy. Owen is coming off an injury. He's going to be playing one of these games this weekend. So, you know, it's just one of those, I guess, times in the season. We just got to take it one game at a time. You know, we're getting better each day at practice and with each game coming at us. So, you know, right now just focus on Rhodes with the squad we have and, you know, get the result there and then move on to Sunday.
How important is it understanding that mentality of you're going to have to rotate at times during the season, injury, suspension, what have you, these kinds of weekends? How do you keep your mentality right when, look, the pieces around you might change?
Yeah, I think it's just having trust in your teammates and also going hard in practice, you know. I think that's kind of something that we've turned up ever since the loss against WNL. We've really picked up the intensity of practice and, you know, want more from people, even if it's the people that don't see the field as much. And then as we come into these later into the season, you know, with these Saturday, Friday games, and then hopefully eventually in the tournament with the Saturday, Sunday turnarounds, you know, everybody knows that they have a role to play and that when the times to step up, you know, they step up and do it.
I'll ask about Rhodes. You know, last year, SAA championship, it was a 3-0 victory for Oglethorpe. Going into this Friday, what has been the message, especially going off of that game and coming into this one?
I mean, neither of us were here last year, but all we've heard is they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. It's essentially us versus them. I mean, I'm not going to say it decides who wins the regular season, but it's definitely very important headed that way. This decides who's remaining on top of the conference, and as long as we play our game, play how Oglethorpe plays, should be a good turnout.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, we've heard that too about Emory, and even like Center and Swanee, just, you know, getting a feel about, you know, rivalry games and the teams that play in the conference. And Rhodes definitely has that, just from their record and the teams they played. You know, they have some quality wins and some good, you know, results against some good teams. So, yeah, I think it's just really going into that Friday game and, you know, playing our game. If we play with the intensity and, you know, if we match each team's intensity and or even, you know, be more intense and, you know, more energetic and press hard and win our 50-50 battles, that's really the name of the game. You know, you can have all the talent in the world over the other team, but, you know, if they come in and want to win their 50-50s and crush you and, you know, you sit back and let it happen, then anyone can beat anyone on a given day. So it's really just about going into the game fearless and, you know, ready to win those 50-50s and let our, you know, skills show from there.
Yep.
I'll finish with this one. You guys both transferred in for this season. What was it about Oglethorpe that sold you on coming here, and how would you recommend it to somebody thinking about that next season?
Yeah, so funny story, coming out of high school, I was getting recruited here, and then it just worked out that I ended up going to West Florida, and then entered the portal, and first school that really came to my mind was here, and they brought an MBA program, so being a 5th year, or 6th year even, it just worked out, and I would say the culture here, it's known to be a good soccer school, and it's lived every bit up to it. So I'd recommend that if you want a culture to buy into, Oglethorpe's the place for you. Yeah,
Definitely. I grew up about 15 minutes down the road. My club team used to practice here, actually. So, you know, I definitely thought about it coming back into my city after being away for 4 years. You know, it's been a real pleasure to be back, you know, and I think the connections you have here, the MBA program, and really, you know, outside of soccer, just trying to set myself up for something better in the future. I think that's definitely part of the reason why, you know, I picked a good school in such a metropolitan area that's close to home. So I think that's definitely one of the reasons. Another one is just, you know, all the quality we have here and, you know, wanting to go off with a bang. It's my last season, so I'd say that's it.